Right now, picture yourself fully asleep. Mouth open, breathing slow, maybe a little drool on the pillow, completely checked out of reality. By every measure that matters in nature, you are defenseless. Now move that picture out of your bedroom. Put you in a tent. One flimsy wall of fabric, almost insultingly thin, is the only thing between you and a stretch of wilderness packed with animals that could turn you into a footnote if the mood struck them. Things with claws and teeth and night vision. Things that can pick up your scent from a long way off and track the rhythm of your breathing through the dark while you lie there, eyes shut, oblivious. And still, morning comes. You unzip the flap, you're fine. Every single time, you're fine. Why? Stop and actually sit with that. A sleeping person is functionally a slab of warm protein, slow protein, quiet protein, protein that can't sprint, can't swing back, can barely process that anything's wrong until it's already gone wrong. By all rights, predators should be orbiting our campsites every night like it's a drive-through. But they aren't. They almost never are. And the explanation isn't a single tidy fact. It never is. It's a stack of reasons, each one stranger than the one before it. And when you put them together, they sketch out something that feels almost like a treaty. A quiet, unwritten pact between us and everything wild, older than cities, older than farms, older than nearly anything we'd file under history. This one runs deep. Come with me. You are terrifying. Let's start with the part that sounds like flattery, but is really just biology. You're scary, not you specifically. Whoever's reading this is probably a perfectly unintimidating person. But your species, to a predator, is an object of genuine, hardwired dread. And not for any reason you'd guess by looking at one of us. We've got no claws worth mentioning. We're slow. Pound for pound, we're weak. We're half blind in the dark. On paper, as an animal, we're almost comically underbuilt. Yet here's what researchers at UC Santa Cruz turned up in 2019. They set up speakers near mountain lions, pumas, cougars, same animal, in the hills above Santa Cruz, and they played the sound of people just talking, ordinary human conversation. The pumas bolted. They ran off as readily as they did from the sound of barking dogs, sometimes quicker. Bear in mind these are animals that drop full-grown deer without breaking stride and haul the carcass uphill afterward. Machines of pure predatory competence. And they heard a couple of humans chatting and noped out. It wasn't a fluke. The same work showed pumas walking away from food they'd already killed the second human voices drifted in, leaving a fresh kill on the dirt and retreating toward the trees. If you understand anything about how a predator budgets energy, you know how staggering that is. A kill represents calories already spent, a debt the animal has to repay by eating. Abandoning it is the equivalent of working a full shift and then setting fire to your paycheck. They did it anyway, because the dread of being near us outweighed the gnawing of an empty stomach. That finding lined up with things biologists had been clocking across continents for decades. Lions in Kruger throttle back their movement where human activity climbs. Tigers in India keep a healthy buffer around villages, even when those villages sit on prime real estate. Jaguars in the Amazon reroute themselves around the places people tend to be. None of these animals is physically outmatched by us. Each one has simply concluded, not as individuals, but as lineages across uncountable generations, that we aren't worth the trouble. And the root of that conclusion is one of the grimmer truths in the natural record. We've been killing big predators so thoroughly, for so long that we've edited their DNA. Sit with the scale of it. Humans have been serious hunters for roughly 2 million years. We ran mammoths off the edge of existence. We emptied whole continents of their giants. Ground sloths, woolly rhinos, saber-tooths, cave bears, creatures that had shrugged off ice age after ice age, gone within a few thousand years of our arrival in their backyards. In North America, we pushed wolves to the brink coast to coast. We scrubbed mountain lions out of the entire eastern half of the continent. We trapped and shot and poisoned predators so relentlessly for so many centuries that everyone alive today descends specifically from the ancestors that were most careful around us. That's not poetry. That's selection doing its bookkeeping. The lions bold enough to creep up on a human camp got speared. The wolves that raided settlements got hunted to the last. The cautious ones, the ones whose instinct was avoid, don't engage, keep walking. Those lived. Those bred. Those handed their wariness down the line. Thousands of years, thousands of generations. And that caution stopped being a choice and became wiring. It became instinct. It's now the factory setting for every large predator that shares a map with us. So when a leopard catches your scent at 2 a.m, something ancient lights up in its nervous system. Not a thought. It isn't reflecting on human history out there in the dark. Just a deep, inherited, involuntary signal. That thing is bad news. Leave it alone. Move along. An alarm passed down from every one of its ancestors that walked away from a human and lived. A memory written in biology. And it runs all the way to the bottom. You smell wrong. Now think about how you smell, something you've almost certainly never considered because you've spent your whole life marinating in the scent of other humans and tuned it out completely. But to a nose anywhere from 10 times to 100,000 times sharper than yours, you are pumping out an enormous, detailed, profoundly weird chemical message. A bear's sense of smell runs around 7 times keener than a bloodhound's. A wolf can pull a scent out of the air from close to 2 miles off in the right conditions. Big cats carry a dedicated instrument in the roof of the mouth, the Jacobson's organ, that basically lets them taste the air and read it like a chemical readout we can't even picture. When one of these animals finds a sleeping human, it's hit with a wall of olfactory information, and almost none of it computes. You smell off. You reek of synthetics, nylon, polyester, the residue of whatever factory process spat out your gear. You smell of processed food, the dinner still on your breath, the snacks zipped in your pack. You smell of soap and shampoo and sunscreen and bug spray, a chemical bouquet with no counterpart anywhere in the living world. Way down underneath all of it, sure, there's a faint primate signature. But that's not the cue. That's not deer. That's not wildebeest or rabbit. The prey these hunters have spent millions of years learning to read. A predator's drive to hunt isn't a generic urge to kill whatever twitches. It's a precision instrument, tuned to particular targets. A wolf's whole attack circuit fires on the specific gait of hoofed animals. A lion's killing reflex keys on the shape and pace and odor of the species it's brought down 1,000 times. You match none of it. You're not in the catalog. You're an error message. And for most predators, an error message reads as, proceed with caution, not dinner. The fire knows something you forgot. Then there's fire, maybe the most underrated trick our species ever pulled. Fire is one of the only things on Earth that triggers near total fear across basically every land animal alive. not learned, not figured out from a bad experience. Built in, bone deep. The animals that feared fire in the wild outran the flames and lived. The ones that didn't. The dread is buried so far down that lab-raised animals who've never once been near a flame will still flinch and back away at nothing more than the smell of smoke. That's how deep it's etched. We got our hands on fire somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, and for nearly all of that span, sleeping beside a fire has just been how it's done. Not only for heat, not only for cooking. We did it, maybe without ever putting words to why, because it works as a ward. A campfire isn't just a warm spot. It's a flare sent up into the surrounding black that announces something dangerous lives here, something that commands fire, steer clear. The predators received that message. They've been receiving it for so long that nobody has to decode it anymore. Smoke drifts in, avoidance switches on. End of story. You sorted that out before farming, before pottery, before writing, before you stacked one stone on another. Fire came first. Honestly, good instincts. Predators are not reckless. Here's the single biggest lie that movies have drilled into us for decades, so let's kill it. Predators are not fearless. They are the opposite of fearless. That picture of the apex hunter as an unstoppable berserker that flings itself at anything in range? Fiction, top to bottom. In the real world, large predators are obsessively choosy about what they tangle with because they have no other option. A lion has no health plan. A wolf gets no sick leave. A single bad injury, a snapped leg, a deep puncture, a wrecked eye, is often just a slow death sentence. Out there, wounds don't get stitched up at a clinic. They either knit themselves shut while the animal somehow keeps hunting to stay fed, or they don't, and the animal starves. Which means every choice a predator makes about engaging is a cold risk assessment. Are the calories in this target worth the odds of getting hurt? Do I know how this thing behaves? Are my chances of pulling off the kill good enough to justify the fuel I'll burn? A sleeping human flunks that test on multiple counts. First, you're unfamiliar. A predator is most dangerous against prey it's studied, watched 100 times, learned the runs and the blind spots and the kick and the moment of panic. It has no read on you. Humans are bafflingly erratic. We might explode awake screaming. We might be lying next to tools. We might have a dozen others within earshot. We might flail in some way no animal has ever flailed. To a creature whose whole survival strategy is minimizing risk, that kind of uncertainty is a blaring warning. Second, your size and your shape. Stood upright, a human is bigger than people assume. Tall, vertical, and that two-legged posture makes us read as larger and more imposing than four-legged animals of the same weight. Researchers who study predator and prey have pointed out that standing tall is itself a threat display. It's what a gorilla does to intimidate. It's what a bear does to loom. A creature that walks around in that posture, by default, comes across as inherently confrontational. Even flat on your back in a sleeping bag, the human outline is odd in a way that does not whisper, "easy meal." Third, and maybe the heart of it, why would it bother? There's nearly always a softer option. A predator in healthy territory with a working ecosystem has prey it knows, prey it's relaxed about, prey that fits its template down to the smell. Picking the strange, unreadable, possibly dangerous thing over the perfectly good impala 20 yards away makes no sense. The math just refuses to add up. You're not sleeping as hard as you think. Here's a layer that almost never makes it into these conversations, and it's one of the wilder facts about your own body. Sleep happens in cycles. You sink into deep, slow-wave sleep, then float back up into lighter phases, REM among them, where the brain is genuinely busy. And during those lighter stretches, your mind stays startlingly tuned to the world around you. It's still parsing sound. Strange noises punch through into awareness far more readily than familiar ones. Scientists call this the sentinel function of sleep. The idea that even at rest, an animal, humans included, keeps a partial watch posted. In the light phases, your brain is still sifting what comes in and flagging anything that smells like trouble. A loud snap of a branch close by, the shove of a large body through brush, a shift in the air that rides in ahead of something big. Any of it can yank you toward waking faster than you'd believe. That's no accident. The humans in our deep past who slept like the dead, unreachable by anything in the night, were the ones who didn't always make it to sunrise. The light sleepers, the ones who could go from out cold to upright in a heartbeat. Those are the ancestors we got. Over hundreds of thousands of years, human sleep got tuned shallow and segmented, lighter and choppier than most big mammals manage, precisely because our history took for granted that the dark would always hold something worth waking up for. So, while you feel utterly powerless lying there unconscious, you're actually running a fairly clever alarm system. Not flawless, not guaranteed, but switched on. You are almost never alone. And then there's the company you keep. People hardly ever camp solo. We move in groups, we sleep in groups, and groups react together. Predators understand group behavior at a gut level, because the prey they chase forms groups too. A wildebeest buried in the herd is far safer than one drifting at the fringe. A fish in the heart of the school is a nightmare to single out. So predators don't just hunt prey, they hunt for separation. They scan for the loner, the straggler, the one that slipped away from the rest. A tent full of sleeping people is a group, and a particularly unappealing kind. The sort where one waking, shouting body will probably wake the others. That collective reaction is exactly the chaos a predator is built to dodge. A hunt that detonates into a frantic group defense is the worst-case scenario, and avoiding the worst case is the entire job. When the rules break. Now, honesty, because this would be a reckless story to tell without it. None of this makes you untouchable. The attacks do happen, and when they do, they nearly always trace back to a situation where the usual rules have been broken. A predator hurt badly enough that it can't take its normal prey. A predator starving because its habitat got bulldozed and its food vanished with it. A predator that's been around people so much it's bled off the inherited caution, which, terrifyingly, can happen fast when tourists feed wildlife, or when animals start linking humans to food instead of danger. Or simply a predator that's old and out of options, past its prime, no longer quick enough to catch what it used to. The lions of Tsavo are the textbook case. In 1898, 2 males killed somewhere between 35 and 135 railway workers across roughly 9 months. The records argue about the count, and the tale only grew taller in the retelling. What usually gets dropped is that these were not normal lions. Both were maneless, which is unusual to begin with. One had wrecked teeth that almost certainly made its ordinary prey far harder to take down. They weren't lion behavior. They were lion behavior bent out of shape by rare, ugly circumstance. The Champawat tiger, credited with something like 436 deaths across India and Nepal in the early 1900s, was found, after the hunter Jim Corbett finally killed it, to have been shot in the mouth at some earlier point, 2 canines shattered. It could no longer bring down what it was supposed to. Injury, and then the squeeze of vanishing habitat, had funneled it toward the only prey reliably within reach and manageable to kill. The same pattern repeats through nearly every documented case of a big predator hitting humans at rest. Something snapped. The usual calculation got overwritten. Inherited caution lost out to desperation. Which is exactly why the rule holds almost everywhere the conditions are normal. An intact ecosystem, a healthy animal, and humans who haven't scrambled the signals by leaving food out, crowding the wildlife, or skipping the fire because it seemed like a hassle. The twist. There's one last layer, and I held it for the end because it's the part that genuinely bends the mind. We've made the wild so afraid of us that the fear itself is now causing problems we never saw coming. That 2019 Santa Cruz study didn't just record that pumas dread humans. It traced how that dread ripples out through the whole food web in ways nobody can fully steer. When pumas dodge the areas we frequent, the deer there catch a break. Less predation, so their numbers climb. More deer means overgrazed vegetation. Meanwhile, the mid-sized hunters, coyotes, bobcats, foxes, also thin out near us, so the rodents they'd normally keep in check start multiplying. The whole system tilts, and it tilts because of us. Because we showed up. Because the fear we've manufactured over thousands of years pours outward through the landscape like a broadcast. We rewrite the behavior of every tier of predator on the continent without ever laying eyes on most of them, just by existing, just by being the thing evolution taught them to flee. One species, one inherited fear, spreading out across the entire living world. The most dangerous animal on this planet is the one that figured out fire before it figured out anything else. The one that shapes whole ecosystems, not only through what it eats, but through what it makes everything else too afraid to eat. The one that sleeps shallow, travels in packs, and carries 10,000 generations of survival folded into its blood. That's you. That's what you are. So next time you're zipped into a tent somewhere far from everything, listening to whatever's moving through the dark on the other side of that thin wall, and you feel that small old jolt of fear, let it ride. That feeling is the reason your ancestors lived to have you. But the thing out there in the night, it isn't coming in. It knows better.